My name is Frida Wikstrand. I'm a doctor in work-life studies from Malmö University, and I work there at our career guidance education. And a lot of my students is actually here today.
Yes.
It's quite fun, former students. I got the same questions as the other one, and on this article or chapter that is about how can career counselors work with norm criticism to work towards social justice, and I got my thinking about social justice mostly from Nancy Fraser, and she's addressing this area in two ways actually. She's saying we can't that social justice is a balance between redistribution of resources between social classes and the recognition of different groups in society. And she says we can't just work with recognizing different groups, because we have to work also with other to redistribution of, it's really hard to say in English, of resources. So we have to work with class as well. But we have to address both these aspects. And that's quite a dilemma in norm criticism as it's been used in Sweden, because norm criticism is a work where you actually, it's about recognizing different groups and including them in the society in different ways, to widening the norms and see what's accepted in society. And I try to see how can we actually use norm criticisms as a way, that I'm going to show in the next slide, to widening the perspective of status and so on in career counseling. So what are the problems as I see them? I'm on the same side of you, and maybe that's because I'm from Sweden or Scandinavia. Gender equality and the gender division of labor is seen as a big problem in the Scandinavian country. Even though we have like 84% women working, we still see a big gender division of labor. And we still see that even though all education is free, we have a situation where social background is important for the way paths we choose in life. And another problem is that we all carry, as we heard Nancy Arthur talk about this morning, we all carry these stereotypical pictures and norms about vocations or status, gender, age, and so forth, as you were addressing as well. And we have norms about what a good life is, as we also talked about this morning, or heard about this morning, what a good work is, and so forth. And I think those are really strong in career guidance, even though we might not want them to be. We all have those pictures. So what is seen as a good choice affects both the guidance practitioners and the person you meet all the time. And I would say there is a reproduction of neoliberal ideas in career guidance, in the way we talk about individual choices. And I'm leaning on Sarah Ahmed, who's talking about willing the right thing is something that what the society is putting on us to be willful in the right way. And if we are too willful and want the wrong thing, it's our own fault if we choose wrong. And at the same time, she talks about happiness as something that is promoted in society, and it's not just every happiness, it's certain happinesses that are promoted. So these are also thoughts I brought into my writing and my thoughts about career guidance and norm critique. And one other problem is the way that career guidance is organized, both in the room when you meet people you're guiding, and in policy documents or organizations, and how we're doing it, our action in our everyday life, is promoting certain kind of choices, also always individual, and certain narratives, as we heard so many talk about today. So I feel I write in thinking in the same length as many of you. And what can we do in career guidance then? Well, I used to talk about some certain things you should think about meeting clients and organizing your work. And I work with this with Mia Lindberg. She's sitting right there. She's a great career counselor and friend. Well, one thing that's really important is to always point at who's included and who's excluded. Look at inclusion and exclusion in everything you organize and do. And try to challenge what's taken for granted, as I said before. And try to see your own norms and values and how you express those in your own actions. For example, when you talk about working life and future life with people. I mean, you're in the future business, you're selling futures in some way. And be aware that we all the time are co-constructors of norms and ideas. And when you meet people, say things, the words you use are reproducing those norms. And try to challenge those. Try to think about how you put things, what you put as valuable or less valuable. Just words like higher and lower. Higher education and lower education. What that signals to people, what that shows. Pay attention to who is visible and different in examples and materials. This is always the migrant people. That's an example when you look at people that are unemployed, or is it always Lisa and Carl that's buying a villa in the mouth example? And then you have the heterosexual norm and you certain kind of family. So this is about doing norm critique, something you do in your everyday life, and it's about doing social justice, I would say, because we're all reproducing those things in our what we do. And it's about being aware of what is rewarded in career guidance, for example, individual choices, and individual happiness. I was to this session before about happiness, it was really interesting. And finally, I would encourage you to use norm criticism or other ways of critical thinking to challenge the paradigm of neoliberalism, as well as the idea of distribution of power through status and the assumption of choices in career guidance, because all those assumptions is risking reproducing the things that we are talking about today as a problem. And that's it. Thank you.